Well, hi everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm very excited to present to you what my capstone project was about and explain what green gravel is. So firstly, this will be the general structure of the presentation, the study site of Ensenada, where were the goals of this project, the methods and products, next steps, and who were my mentors and collaborators. This capstone project was developed in alliance with the Nature Conservancy in California, Kelp project, because there's an interest to accelerate the protection and restoration of kelp forests by leveraging innovative tools. So let's jump right in. For a bit of context, around 12% of the world's populations depend on the oceans as a source of income and basic protein needs. Brown algae or kelps are habitat-forming species that cover 25% of the world's coast and coastlines in temperate and polar regions. This is almost the equivalent of coral reef surface. This map shows the wide distribution of one of the particular species called Macrocystis perifera or giant kelp, which looks more or less like this. It is a structure that creates a rich underwater forest. There's an estimated value of this ecosystem of $130,000 per hectare per year. Due to climate change and other human-related impacts, it is in decline. Baja California is the Mexican state south of California, and our coast is in the southern distribution limit of giant kelp, pointed out by that green arrow. There are multiple impacts causing kelp decline in the region, which are increased environmental variability, such as the marine heat waves. We also suffer from a lack of runoff regulations related to urban, industrial, and agricultural development and deprives light to go into the ocean floor. And we have an old mismanagement of our marine trophic webs. This tool called Kelp Watch, created by the Nature Conservancy and UCLA, utilizes satellite images to register historical kelp cover. In grid pixels, you can see where there has been kelp. Choose one of the boxes shown on the north or the south of the map and see what the actual state is. The graph below shows total biomass in recent years, and some areas, as you just saw, have lost over 90% of their cover. So, local context. Baja California's fishing communities rely heavily on kelp forest biomass availability to support their source of livelihood. Kelp grazers like red urchins and abalone and all those circled around here are on the second and fifth most economically important fisheries of the region. And on the right, you can see in colorful polygons how extensive the fishing areas are. On the socioecological aspects, we are in quite a unique region because fishing communities are far away from central governments and their fishing areas are self-governed. They organize themselves to create no-take zones, marine protected areas, ecological monitoring programs, as well as sustainably assigning their fishing quotas. We have a strong precedent of fishing and science collaboration, which provides an opportunity to increase the potential for success of the adoption of new management techniques, such as restoration. So all of this information I've been gathering for years working in this environment and the experience of people around me led me to the following question. What can we do to support ecosystem resilience and the source of fishers' livelihoods? And trying to figure it out is how Spora was born, Socioecology and Planning for Optimal Restoration of Algae. We're an initiative that aims to work as a platform to integrate technical and local knowledge into kelp restoration efforts. For now, and for this capstone project, we were focusing on green gravel, which is an easy and applicable tool to scale kelp forest restoration in remote areas, where funding and a lack of highly trained workers are an issue. This aims to enhance the dispersal stage of kelp. What we do is take tiny kelp spores and place them in rocks of 1 to 2 inches. We maintain them in the lab until they're 2 centimeters in size. This is around 8 weeks when they're ready to be outplanted. In the midterm, if we strategically reestablish adults, they could aid themselves and repopulate their surroundings by reconnecting patches. So instead of being a 1-to-1 effort, we will be talking about a 1 to 100 or even 1 to 100,000 effort. And we're not the only ones working on this. We're part of the Green Gravel Action Group, which is a network of projects around the world working with different species and environmental conditions. So directly to the goals. First, we want to identify what characterizes a good site for kelp reforestation potential. We need to onboard the community. Well, we need the gravel and we need to pilot it out in the field. So first of all, The first deliverable, we aggregated data to identify the sites that had a higher likelihood to implement restoration efforts. And the criteria we used were historical kelp cover from 2010 to up to date, that there are fishing communities with territorial use of rights for fisheries or just their fishing areas with kelp-associated species, such as red urchin, California sheephead, kelp bass, lobster, abalone, and sea cucumber, all economically important. And also that there's available rocky reef, which are the enabling conditions for adult kelps to hold on to the substrate and grow. So this is the first deliverable, which was a regional map of sites with kelp restoration potential. And if you see, the area is quite extensive. But if we zoom in into any section of the coast, all pixels shown in yellow are inside our turfs. So based on that regional map, we zoomed in into the Ensenada, my hometown, and localized key sites that we wanted to work with. These are in the north, El Sausal with Litoral Fishing Community, and in the south with Campo Kennedy, the Esteban Cantú Fishing Community. With the fishing community selected and the location of historical kelp cover, we sent down a drop-down camera made with a GoPro and some lights, and we dropped it in various sites along the coast, focusing on those that have a higher probability of appearance based on the satellite images. The images helped us select the sites that had available rocky reefs, and some of them had turf algae onto it. So with that info, we were ready to send divers down to characterize the sites to have a baseline before restoration efforts for fish, for algae, invertebrates, and characterize the substrate. This with the Socioecological monitoring protocol. So now we need to get the people's buy-in. So we wanted to build trust and buy-in from our most direct beneficiaries and stakeholders. Having them involved in the long run will increase the potential of adoption of any restoration technique, as mentioned before. So this is why we reached out and got their buy-in of these two localized communities, Litoral and Esteban Cantú. Also, this work is being considered for the ongoing regional strategic plan for kelp reforestation, where I got to present to 3 fishery cooperative representatives, 11 regional fisheries directors and officers, and 2 academic consultants. This program is promoted by the Baja California Fisheries and Aquaculture Secretary. I also created a technical sheet for decision-making, sharing about our pilot, the progress, and our expectations. And all of these joint efforts led us to have a 3rd pilot, which is currently ongoing, and fishermen are actively involved. I also had the opportunity to mentor 2 undergraduate students in the lab and the field and creating outreach materials, such as infographics and videos, to communicate with younger generations about the existence of kelp, their importance, and the effects of kelp loss in their everyday life. This was done in Spanish as well as in English. So now moving on to the cold trend of green gravel. So as part of my summer internship, I supported Lamb Lab at the University of California, Irvine, where PhD student Phoebe Dawkins and I developed the green gravel protocol for giant kelp. And the chapters include the following: an introduction of the general situation, macrocystis peripheral biology, how to set up the lab and prepare all the materials, and of course, culture the gravel. And the special part of our protocol are the appendix, which include tools for green gravel growers to calculate expenses with links and brands, working hours, a calendar of expectations, when to adjust light and nutrients, as well as the nutrient recipes and diagrams to set up the lab. For the first weeks, it looked like we were taking care of bare rock, but after day 30, the blades became visible, they kept growing, and by day 60 or around week 8, we were ready to outplant them. Based on the protocol information and some of the literature, we estimated a cost of $3.6 per square meter per green gravel application. This is almost half of what has been previously described. The considerations of these prices are: there's no cost of deployment, people hours, or collections. Because there's a precedent, the fishing communities have reassigned lab technicians and monitoring divers to the restoration actions for other species. Also, a medium to high density of 4 adults per 100 square meter as a healthy forest, the retention of 10% of the gravel, a production cost of the laboratory setup of $9,000, each trial considering 1,000 green gravel produced, and that there's a pre-existing infrastructure such as temperature control room, freezer, and seawater supply, which is what I had when I arrived working here at UABC, and that many fishing communities already count with. So we got the site selected, we have the community engaged and the green gravel. We're ready to test it out on real conditions. So on March of this year, we gathered some divers, described the sites, found little herbivores, and we seeded green gravel in 3 determined densities in triplicates. After a week, we found something unexpected, sand movement. We were able to locate our plots, but the gravel was stumbled around without any juveniles remaining. Although all data layers, historical kelp cover, and field assessment pointed out at this site as a suitable pilot site, we didn't account for sand movement. So we immediately started a new green gravel culturing round in a new site. Esteban, now talking about the south in Esteban Cantú. In this pilot, we decided to divide the gravel into batches, released and caged, because we knew of heavily urchin densities, which led us to coordinate weekly removals within our green gravel pilots. 1 week after all the released gravel were almost in the same spot, which indicates that wave exposure or sediment movement was not a problem like in El Sausal, we found no juveniles on our gravel. But the caged juvenile grew just fine and duplicated their size in a week. This confirms that environmental conditions were right for giant kelp to grow. So we suspected that our weekly gray soil removal efforts were not enough. So a month after seeding, we released some of the caged gravel you see here, and we camped overnight and monitoring the site every 2 hours. In under just 24 hours and 10 dives, we confirmed grazing behavior, not by the nearby urchins, but by some seasonal snails, Megastrea. This confirms one more time that restoration efforts need to be custom-made and include active involvement in preparation and maintenance of the restoration site, and that although green gravel shows a promising technique to restore, we need to figure out other limitations in advance. The cages are a great tool to, in a small scale, validate sites' environmental conditions for kelp growth. But all of this information informed the following tool, which is a decision tree for pilot site selection, which includes from top to bottom, socioeconomical, physical, and biological characteristics. We first focus on the socioeconomical context, at least for Baja California, because we need people constantly on the field. This is why here is a region great for piloting. Also mean in the section below, in the biological section, just to give an example, with the disclosure that this is an evolving document. So for example, grazers, which are the last wall to proceed or not with the pilot. If there are removal efforts possibilities that take their densities under 4 urchins per square meter, which is what has been registered in a balanced kelp forest, they may proceed. If not, there's a suggestion to keep looking, as we've learned from Campo Kennedy. So I want to reiterate that we're still in the research and development phase of green gravel for giant kelp in Baja California. We still need to consider the need to compare green gravel effectiveness and scalability potential with other restoration methods and their costs. So in summary, our key takeaways are, there's a recognition of kelp decline as a major event in our coasts, and that is being reflected in increasing collaboration with fishing communities and governmental agencies. We also have a working green gravel protocol for the Californias, Baja California and California, that can be replicated. We also have the beginning of a gamified bank, which is the equivalent of a seed bank that we've been collecting from the populations we've been working with in the different trials. We've also created bilingual outreach materials, such as infographic, videos, fact sheets that can reach various users. And we have a work of concept that can inform the next steps, which are to continue the support of the regional strategic plan for kelp forest reforestation restoration with the 3rd pilot here, and the activities from year 2 to 5, which are to keep assessing which sites have potential for restoration, to use that map and go out in the field in different areas, to have a comparative restoration method. For example, culture adults mid-water, to bring just the reproductive tissue, which are the sporophyll bags, or translocate adults. We need to compare and assess what's most effective. And to assess again, what's the benefit of this tool or this solution on the socioecological aspect. And of course, we want to keep building regional presence under Spora. And all of these questions is what I'll try to address during the next years of my PhD in ecology and evolutionary biology under Spora, again at UCSC. So I just want to thank everyone that has supported this capstone project, my co-advisors, Pete and Mark, the Nature Conservancy, Walter Hetty and Tristan McHugh, Rodrigo Veas and Julio Dorda for Mexcal in UABC, and from Botánica Marina, Jose Certuche and Jose Sandoval. And big thanks to the experience with Lamp Lam at UCI, also the University of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and the Green Gravel Action Group. My funding sources, CSP, TNC, Schmidt Marine, Tinker Foundation, and the Sustainable Ocean Alliance. And of course, the amazing leaders behind the scenes, Anne and Sarah, that helped me live the sea experience even from the distance. And of course, no words can explain how thankful I am that we're all well and healthy. So I'll just thank and enlist all of you. My related and chosen family, my co-Kelp parent, Phoebe Dawkins, and the Irvine crew, my talented students, Lily and Ale, the amazing team and family at Mexcal, technicians and principal investigators from Botánica Marina, and of course, the pandemic pup, Manolo. And just everyone that have invested their screen time for me to be here today. And with that, I'll take any questions.